Episode 119, Helping Your Teen Be the Hero of Their Own Story with Joey Mascio.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
Who doesn't love the stories told in movies like Star Wars, Harry Potter, and The Hunger Games? There is something in all of us that can relate to the underdog, the one least likely to succeed, triumphing over evil and accomplishing great things. Have you ever thought that perhaps it's because that is the story many of us actually do live, or at least want to live? We want to be heroes in our own lives, and we want to feel triumphant. Coach Joey Mascio is here to teach you some great ways that as a parent, you can allow this triumphant story to be true for your teen. He believes that for every teen to triumph, they must have a mentor, and parents are the best person to fill that role. But all too often, parents feel like the villain, the very thing their teen is trying to triumph over. It doesn't need to be that way at all, but you need to know the difference between what a villain does versus what a mentor does. This episode is fun, filled with good times, and will leave you knowing what you can do to be the mentor your teen needs and wants on their journey to become the hero of their life story. If you feel you need more guidance, reach out to Joey and see how he can help you. If after listening you have any questions or comments, please go to iTunes and drop them in the review section. Heather will love to answer them in a future episode. Enjoy this episode with Joey Mascio.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. I am excited to be joined by Coach Joey Mascio. He's been on with me on our podcast a few times, and so he's like an old pro here, but I still need to have you introduce yourself, Joey, in case anybody hasn't heard about you or who you are before.
Yeah, definitely. First off, thanks for having me back.
Hey, I always say this is our podcast. It's not mine, so it's not having you back. It's just having you join me again.
Well, all right. Well, thank you to us for having me back.
Thank you to us.
Yeah, I'm a teen life coach. I've been working with teens for about 4 years now, specifically on areas of self-confidence, social skills, and achieving goals. Before I was a life coach, I was a middle school teacher and counselor for 7 years. And before that, I was an actor and a performer. And like I always say, I probably said this on the podcast a couple of times, but I'm the only actor in Disney history at Disneyland to have played both Darth Maul and the Mad Hatter. So
It's your claim to fame.
It's my claim to fame.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. A conversation with you is always so good because it's just fun. You just get good stuff. And
if it's not fun, why bother?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Okay. So you said that you are a coach for teens, and I'm not sure that we get a ton of teens listening here. Like that's not necessarily what our demographic is. So what's awesome for us is that we get to talk to the parents of teens here. And that is a huge place to start. Right. And, yeah. One of the things I want to circle back to that you said you worked with teens on self-confidence. And don't you find that that's like the foundation to almost everything that anybody struggles with, teen or not, is just self-confidence and knowing who they are?
Absolutely. When it comes to anything faith-based, self-confidence, right? When it comes to anything social skills, talking to people, self-confidence. When it comes to achieving goals, and auditioning for that play or trying out for that sport or whatever, dating, self-confidence is in all of it. And that was my journey. I had a very personal journey with self-confidence from middle school to my senior year in high school, where I went from really awkward kid who felt like the sidekick in my own life to senior year. I was exactly who I wanted to be. I felt like the hero of my story, and for me, my version of that was People knew who I was. I was on stage a lot. People thought I was funny. I was voted most humorous my senior year of high school, and that was such a big journey for me where I'm like, man, I can do it. I felt like a sidekick. And when I teach teens about self-confidence or whatnot, I use the phrase going from sidekick to hero, because that's how I identified as. I was a sidekick. I'm trying, right? I'm on the team, and I have some capabilities, but man, I'm falling short so much. I'm just not that hero guy over there. I'm just not the main character. I'm not fully in control of things. I'm just auxiliary.
Mhm.
And that also helps to identify the kinds of teens that I work with. It's not the ones who aren't even trying, the ones who, consider themselves so far, like they're not even on a team. They're a victim somewhere, like
Mhm.
I work with those teens who are striving, but feel like they keep falling short.
Mhm. And I think what's interesting about what you just shared is that a lot of those things that you said that you had, quote unquote, achieved by your senior year are things that are external, like people from the outward would see, which really is like teenagers think that's a big deal. But I would dare to say that where the biggest transformation was actually what happened within you, which is what then made those things that people see from the outward more
Yeah.
visible.
100%. Some of those things, those measurements that we strive for, the external validations,
Mhm.
some of those are a reflection of our internal validations and the internal
Mhm.
work that we've been doing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Some.
And this confidence too, I think as we look at parents of teens, there's a level of self-confidence there that it takes for us to be the parents that we want to as well. If we're always second guessing, if we're not trusting ourselves, and we don't have confidence in our ability to be a parent, then it's hard to get anywhere there either.
Oh yeah, 100%. And when I talk to parents about this, if the teen is going from sidekick to hero, the parent has their own journey. And if the
Mhm.
teen is the hero in their story, what does that make the parent? Well, far too often the parent feels like the villain in the story,
Mm.
right? They're the one who is trying to force their teen to do things, and the teen is viewing them as the parent. Mom, just leave me alone. Oh my goodness, you're always trying to change it. Stop it. But what the parent wants to be is the mentor in the story. The mentor is the person that your teen goes to for advice. They listen to. They don't always do everything the mentor asks of them, but the mentor is the adult in their life that they trust. In most heroes' journey, classic stories, right? It's some adult in their life. Usually it's called the wise old man,
Mhm.
but
Who's the name of the one? I'm thinking the one that's coming to my mind is Batman's, the older man in Batman's story.
Alfred?
Yes, Alfred.
Yes. Yeah,
That's the
Batman
one
has
I'm thinking
Alfred.
of. Yes.
Alfred is his voice of reason,
Mhm.
and Alfred's the one that he goes to. And even though he's out there and he's doing everything on his own, right, he comes back to the Bat Cave, and Alfred's there with, I don't know, a plate of lobster bisque or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And he talks to Alfred, and Alfred kind of sets him straight, in some
Mhm.
things.
Yeah, he's home base. And like everybody, including Batman, needs that.
Yes, 100%.
Yes. Okay, so why do you think that we as parents feel like the villain so often?
First off, your teen might be telling you that you're the
Well,
villain.
that's true. They probably most likely are.
Yeah, they verbalize that in some way, right?
Yes, yes.
And if it's not saying you're the villain, it's saying something along the lines of, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh my goodness, you don't get me. You don't want me to. Why are you always trying to change me? Why don't you like my friends? Why can't I do this? Why are you always trying to stop me from doing things? So the parent could feel like the villain, first off, because how their teen is reacting to their parenting. Second, you could feel like the villain just internally. I was coaching one mom, and we came to this realization together where she's like, shoot, I only talk to my teen for about 5 minutes a day. And during those 5 minutes, I spend trying to change them.
Mm.
And I'm like, man, she's like, what's wrong with me? I'm like, nothing. You're just going to be driven by this fear that as their mom or as their parent, I'm the one who needs to make sure they make the best decisions. I'm the one who needs to make sure that they take the right path. And if they don't, then it's my fault.
No pressure.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we're going to talk about today 3 rules that will help you go from villain to mentor. And I don't know if you're ready for that yet. But
Yeah, let's
ready when you
just
are.
dive right in. Well, actually, let me ask you this. Yes, we probably, a lot of parents identify as the villain in the story, and whether they feel that way or because their kids are telling them that. Why is that a problem? Like, some people are like, it's fine, I'm the villain. Why is that not useful for us?
Yeah, well, because as a parent, we are the best adult in our teens' lives. We really are. We have the most love for them, the most investment for them. I remember when I first started posting on social media, on my Facebook, my personal one. All right, I'm a teen life coach, right? One of the first trolls I got was somebody saying their parent should be their life coach. And I remember responding, yeah, 100%. I agree. Totally. It's okay for them to have more than one adult that they can go to, right? Who's on their side. And B, most parents don't know how to be a life coach, right? I've been trained. I've had over a decade of experience of working with teens where I know some tricks, some rules that I follow that help me be an adult that they can listen to. But as the parent, you are the person they should be going to. But if you are the villain, if you have taken that role, they will not be going to you. And instead, they might be going to other people for sources of information or assistance or guidance. And maybe these might be people that are going to be giving them guidance, their friends, right? Social media, influencers that might not be the best for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm thinking to the trolls that I get, like for the directory and the back end of the directory. The things I get are, Jesus should be everybody's life coach, not anybody else. So it's very much the same, right? Like, yep, we just need our parents. We just need Jesus, which to an extent is great, except for we also know that we have a responsibility too, right? Like, they're there to help us in whatever way that we need, but there's things that we can do to make our journey better as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think our job as a life coach, if we're doing it correctly, an end result, I should say, may be that a person getting coached gets out of their own way. So now they can better connect to Jesus.
Yes, that is a huge part of it.
Right. And for me, when I work with teens, I get this response all the time. Right. And parents are like, oh, man, we're having such a better relationship. I'm like, that's so funny. We haven't talked about you at all during our coaching calls. Right. Yeah. Or anything like that, but when you can fix what's going on up here in your own mindset and you're the hero of your story, your relationships with those people who matter most will automatically improve.
Yeah. That is probably for me been the biggest shift that's happened in my life as a result of coaching and continuing to learn and progress is my relationship with my Heavenly Father, with our Savior, and with all the people in my earthly family that I have relationships with. So yeah, I agree with that completely. All right. Let's go to the things then, the 3 things.
All right. So the 3 rules are the Obi-Wan rule, the Dumbledore rule, and the Haymitch rule.
Okay.
So based on 3 famous
and I've heard of those people. I'm proud of myself because I've heard of all of them.
Yeah, Haymitch might be the one. Some people are like, oh, that name sounds so familiar, but who is that? Right? Hunger Games.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, these are mentors, and each one of these mentors really do a great job at exhibiting this particular rule. When you watch them in this story that they're in, you're like, oh yeah, man, I wish I could be more like Obi-Wan in that way, or like Dumbledore in that way. Right. So here it goes. Let's first start with the Obi-Wan rule. So the Obi-Wan rule is let go of your teens' results. And I think Obi-Wan,
that's a hard one.
It is a hard one.
Sorry, I just interrupted you, but that's the one where parents are like,
yeah, I can't do it. But here's the thing. Like, if you're familiar with Star Wars at all, the whole Jedi Master Padawan relationship is their master wants a result for them, but they have to let go. They have to detach themselves if they want to be connected to the Force and have their own power as the master, right, they have to become detached in that way of whatever their Padawan, their person they're training is going to do or going to get. And you're right, it is one of the hardest things to do as a parent. But if you're someone who accepts reality, you know that you cannot control your team's results. You can't control the things that they do. And if you're holding on to that thought that A, you can, and B, you should, then you're going to repel your team, because you'll either come out as authoritative, angry, passive aggressive, because you'll have so much tied in to their results. And
angry people and passive aggressive people are the funnest people to have a relationship with, right? Like your kids are just like, let me in there.
Yeah, let me go talk to that person, right? I love talking to mom when she's always dropping these subtle hints of how I should have different friends. I love talking to mom about that. It's great. Yeah. And it's funny because I was talking about this with somebody, and they pointed out, they're like, well, but look at Obi-Wan, right? Like, he trained both. Like, well, they said this. He trained Darth Vader. He trained Anakin Skywalker, and Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. And I'm like, exactly. Literally exactly. The same guy trained Darth Vader and trained Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
And Luke Skywalker becomes the ultimate hero, right? And Darth Vader becomes the ultimate villain, even though Darth Vader still has an arc where he comes back at the end and he chooses good, and he ends up buddy with Obi-Wan as they're both ghosts chilling at the end of I forget what episode that is, episode 6, whatever, right? But even he comes back, right? Now, if you do look at the villain in contrast to the mentor in each story, you learn some valuable lessons, right? So Darth Vader is the villain, right, in the mentor, or to Obi-Wan's mentor. He literally uses the Force to try to force other people's results. Mm-hmm. Quite literally uses that. And he's like, nope, like, I'm going to force choke you. I'm going to make you do this. I'm going to, I'm going to move your actual body so you do the thing I want you to do. And quite often as parents, we wish we had that power.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
but we don't. It's not a real thing. And if you show up as someone who's like, I'm going to let go of my teen's path. I'm going to let go of the choice that they make, and wherever they end up, they're going to end up. I'm here. And remember, we're not saying we're going to let go. You're not going to be there for them. When you do this, they'll most likely come back to you or come to you and go, well, what should I do? And you're like, well, what do you want? Right. And and that starts getting to the second rule. But
let me ask you this before we move on. Can you tell me the difference, and maybe there isn't, between letting go and having rules in your home, because they are teenagers and they are not like, they still live in your house? Like, can you have rules in your home? Because is that different than letting go?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's the Hey Mitch rule number 3.
Okay. Then we can wait until then. But I just am like, are we going to address that? Because I can hear parents right now going, wait a second.
Yes. Yeah, no. In fact, these rules are in order.
Okay.
Right. And if step number 1 is to let go of the result. If you do step number 1 or rule 1, if you follow that rule, you can better do rule 2. And if you follow rule 1 and 2, you can best do rule 3.
Okay. I can be patient and I can wait to hear rule number 3. Okay.
Yes. All right. So first, rule number 2. So once you've let go of their result, rule number 1, Obi-Wan's rule, you're ready for Dumbledore's rule. Okay. Mm-hmm. Dumbledore's rule is let them figure it out. I remember just last fall, I read books 1 and 2 to my children of Harry Potter. Right.
Okay.
And I remember being like, oh, guys, you'll love Dumbledore. He's so cool. He's so great. And in books 1 and 2, Dumbledore is barely there. I mean, these kids, 11-year-olds are running about the castle, a Hogwarts castle, and they're like fighting 3-headed dogs, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And Dumbledore like waltzes in, and just drops some wisdom and then leaves, and I remember thinking, now the greatest wizard of all time, who Dumbledore is supposed to be in this saga, I don't think he's not aware of their activities. I think he knows what they're doing, and he's letting them do it. He's letting them run about. And yeah, they break things, they get hurt, they get scratched, they get all this stuff. But I think Dumbledore knows this is the best way for them to learn these most powerful lessons. They need to figure it out. And far too often as parents, we're like, well, look, I know I've been through this, sweetie. Let me just tell you the answer. Let me tell you what you should do. And when we do that, our teens reject the very good thought that you're trying to implant in their brain. And they reject it like a virus. Because they're like, no, I don't want what? No, mom, I'm not going to be you. I'm not going to live life the way you want me to live life. I'm going to do it on my own, and far too often when they go do that, and they come back, and they're like, mom, you're right, whatever. But they need to do that. They need to experience the pain, sometimes the wrong choices, and always use balance and caution. I'm not saying let your 11-year-old go fight a 3-headed dog, but them failing is absolutely the best, and them figuring it out is just the best. So when they do come to you, because when you follow rule 1 and you let go of the result, and they know, hey, when I go talk to mom, she's not going to try to get me to do something or stop dating this person or study more. She's not going to try to get me to do any of that. She's going to let me have my own freedom and results that I want. So nice. And they'll start talking to you more. Then don't ruin it, right? By going, oh, good, you're talking to me now. Let me, tell you exactly what to do. Start asking questions. That's what makes you and I, Heather, such great coaches, is that we ask questions. And if we lead our client's mind to a place where they create their own answer, and maybe it looks different than the answer we had in mind for them, but it looks more like their answer, they're going to hold on to it a lot better with more vigor. Like, no, I've learned this is mine. And you're like, sweet, that's great. You discovered that on your own, and they're more likely to hold on to it.
Yeah. I mean, you've created the safe space for them to explore it.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's be honest, they are growing up in a world that doesn't even remotely resemble what the world looked like when I was growing up. I mean, I'm older than you, but so we like to think that we know all the things that they should do and how they should handle every situation. But can we just admit that we have no clue? They think we can't relate to them, and probably we can't. We didn't have the world that they have when we were growing up. So I think it is so important that we let them explore, and we give them the safe place to explore, because what we have to say might very not well be relatable to them.
Yeah.
I just think that that's the truth. I mean,
no, I agree. I agree. And it's funny because if you look at the villain in the story, right, opposite Dumbledore, you have Voldemort, right? He who shall not be named. And if you look at how he interacts with his subordinates, right, the people that he's the leader over, it's always telling them that they're dumb, right? He talks down to them. He tells them exactly what to do. It's my way or no way. I'm smart and you're not. I have the answers. You're just some nobody, right? And the opposition there, his people have to follow him due to out of fear. And there's no real learning there. Most villains, their followers will leave them at the drop of a hat if there's something better out there. But you can build a real strong connection to your mentor, and which is what we want from our teens. We want them to build a strong connection with us. If we're giving them that space and that freedom, we're treating them like someone who can figure it out. I believe that if I give you enough space, you will figure this out. And that kind of confidence you have in them will allow them to have confidence in themselves.
Yeah, that is such a good point. It's making me think. I'm reading this book right now. I don't even have it in here with me, but it's talking about, it's there's this little story that just says a man was trying to choose between two gurus who he wanted to be his mentor or his guru. And the first one that he talked to said, sure, I would love to mentor you. Let's schedule a time that we can, get together. And the other one said, I really don't have that much to teach you, I'm sure, but hey, why don't you come back tonight and let's watch the sunset together? And he chose the second one, right? The person who was not the know-it-all, but the person that was spend time with me. And anyway, I don't know why that made me think of that, but I really liked that story. Like we're going to gravitate to the person that's like, I just want to be with you, versus the one that's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you should do.
Yeah. Yeah. Send me that story when you find it. I
I will. It's in a book it's a book about learning how to fall in love, which is totally like, I'm totally in love, but it's like, it's, who's it by? Oh my gosh, it's totally missing me. But yeah, I'll link to it in the show notes, and I'll send you the story, because it's a good one.
Nice. Okay. Are we ready for the last rule?
Yeah. So we've got the Obi-Wan, we've got Dumbledore, and the last one,
Haymitch. Okay.
Haymitch.
So the Haymitch rule is this: have clear and firm boundaries. Right now, all mentors do this, but I think Haymitch does it very well, right? If you're familiar with Hunger Games, right, when we first meet Haymitch, he's supposed to be the mentor to Katniss and Peeta, right? And he's supposed to help them in the Hunger Game, but I mean, he's totally drunk and he's alcoholic because, you know, he has to like mentor these kids who all die, right? So he's coping with his stuff in his own way, right? But when he finally steps up and goes, all right, I'm going to mentor you. They're on the train in the movie, right? They're on the train, and he starts talking to Katniss in this way. And I love their mentor and hero relationship. He's like, look, princess, you know, if you don't do this, I cannot help you. I know the rules of the Hunger Games. I know the politics of it all. And if you don't follow these rules, I can't help you. And notice they do have, you know, a lot of headbutting, because I think it's harder for Haymitch to follow rules 1 and 2, right? Because his result for them is he wants them to live, obviously, right? You know, but luckily that's also the result they want for themselves. But as parents, I think it's important to have clear and firm boundaries. Now, I use those two words on purpose. I was a middle school teacher for 7 years, and this is something I had lots of practice on with thousands of teens throughout my time. And the clear part is they have to know. You have to content communicate to them what your expectations are, what your rules are. And these are rules that feel good for you. I am not a proponent. Whenever I talk to parents, I'm like, I don't care. There's positive parenting. There's this kind of parenting. There's that kind of parenting. Don't have consequences. Do have consequences, right? And there's good and bad to all of them. Okay. I'm never one to say this one thing works all the time and for everybody. You know what's best for you. In fact, you should be setting rules and boundaries that make you feel like you are being a good parent, and you're setting them for yourself. And once you have those, clearly communicate them to your teen outside of the moment. So notice Haymitch communicated his rules to Katniss outside of the Hunger Games, before the game started. And I liken that to any confrontation between you and your teen. That's the Hunger Games. Okay? You want to communicate to them, look, if you do this, then I can do this, right? And it allows me to do this. Or if you do this, I won't do this. Sometimes it's a can't, sometimes it's a won't. And both are okay, in my opinion, to say, hey, look, if you date that person, that's great, but you can't have the car, right? Because I don't agree with that. It's fine to not agree, right? I don't agree with that. You're welcome to date them, but you can't have the car. That's an example, right? And other things are, look, if you do this, you're not doing your homework. It's going to be harder for me to help you get your grades up if your grades have already dropped down so far. That's going to be really hard. So, if you really want me to come in and help you out and help you with things, then make sure you do your part of the homework. And so that when you come to me, then I can better help you with that. Right. Clearly communicating to them outside of the game. And that's at the beginning of the school year, at the beginning of every month, whenever you have a family meeting, if you have one of those, right? And in my opinion, they're good to have, monthly. Hey, let's talk about what's going on, and then talk about with them some clear expectations. So that's being clear. Mm-hmm. Right. Any questions or comments that you have on that?
I just always hear the word clear, and I think clear is kind. Clear is always kind.
Yeah, it really is. Right. And that's what I learned as a middle school teacher, is that I had 4 rules. It was very simple. Right. I don't know if I remember them all now, but it was essentially like, no talking while I'm teaching, stay in your seat, 100% of the time. And because that was important to me, and no phones, and some other one, right? That was there. Or I think participating. So, right. But those are it. Those are the four. It was clear. And and they knew exactly what would happen if any of those rules were broken, and because this is going to help me be your best teacher.
Right. And that's kind to you as the teacher, and it's kind to your student, right? Because everybody knows what to expect, and there's not these expectations, because when our expectations are unmet, then that's when the resentment starts to form.
Yes.
So if you are clear, you're kind, I mean, it all goes together, right? Clear as kind leads to less resentment and better relationships.
Yeah, 100%. And I had a really good relationship with my students, and it was an inner city kind of a school. And I remember being surprised like 6 months in to one of my years when I found out, oh my goodness, like 5 of the 6 kids who have been suspended for really like bad things are my students. And I didn't even know that. I was like, they're not bad students. Like, oh no, they're like other teachers. They're the worst. I'm like, what do you mean they're the worst? They're like angels in my class. We get along very well. And I think it was because in part I had clear boundary and firm boundaries. So that's the second part. Firm is follow through with what you said, like with what you set up. Haymitch was very firm on what he told Katniss to do and what he couldn't do. And he was just like, look, like this is the way it is, or I'm not helping you. All right. And you have to be firm. When you're not firm and you start changing things, and usually we change it to our teens' detriment, right? We change things, you know what, fine, and we start giving them punishments that were never even part of the plan. And they're like, well, what the heck? That wasn't the deal. That wasn't what you said. That wasn't what you communicated to me. It makes for a very rough mentor-hero relationship. And if you change it the other way, where you want to be kind, and that's the thing that we think, oh, it's really good, time off for good behavior. I don't believe in that, because then you're teaching them how to work the system. You're teaching them that things can change. And then they're going to collect that data, because teens are data collectors. And they'll say, oh, when mom says I can't have my phone for 2 days, well, it's really 1 day if I ask nicely or whatever, so, and I know now that time is malleable for mom, like I can negotiate on time. And then when they start negotiating the next time, you get frustrated. Like, why are they negotiating? I said 2 days. Well, because the last couple times you said 2 and gave it back to them in 1. Now, you can change the consequence that you've set up, but outside of the game. You can't do it during the game. So during the like when you're enacting it and all that, that's not the time. Even if you realize, you know what? Yeah, 2 days is kind of harsh. All right, well, let's do this. It's 2 days for now, but let's talk about this at the next family meeting or next week. And let's talk about what might be better. Change it outside of the game. And I love this connection. If you look at the villain in Hunger Games, who's opposite of Haymitch, it's President Snow. And what does he do, right? At the end of the Hunger Games, he changes the rules in the game. They make this announcement, you know what, 2 people can win. A boy and a girl can both win if they're from the same district. And they're like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. And they start doing that. And then at the very last minute, he goes, oh, actually, just kidding. Nope. It's just one person can win. Good luck. That's what makes him the villain. He's always changing things. He's doing things, however, benefits him and his emotions. Don't do that as a parent. That puts you in villain territory.
Yeah. And it actually makes us need to think about things. And it's hard to think about, like, if you're in the moment, if you're in the game, you can't really. That's why a lot of times it is best to do it when you're not in the game, because you're not thinking clearly, and you'll throw something out there that you full well know that you're not going to be able to follow through with.
That's the worst.
Yes.
That's the worst. You're grounded for a month. Oh, no.
Like,
now I have to be with them for a month, and I have to stick to it. And yeah. So,
or like the phone. I never wanted to ground my kids from their phone, because I'm thinking I wouldn't be able to get a hold of them if I needed to, like, okay, you might lose some things on your phone, but you can't lose your phone altogether, because I can't not have communication with you. I don't know. Yeah. I'm always thinking of, what's this going to do to me? If I do this to them, what's it going to do to me? That's good and bad. So,
well, right. But I mean, I think it's smart to figure out, because if you can't uphold those standards as that mentor, right, then you kind of lose your authority as a mentor, right? All mentors, you kind of have the stoicism about them. where they're like, hey, this is just the way it works. It's not personal for them. This is just the way the machine works. It's not because I don't like you. It's not because I don't want you to succeed. It's just because this is how the machine works. And it's not personal. And when you set that up ahead of time, it's easier to stick to it, because when you make it personal, you start throwing out these random things that you don't want to do.
For sure. And doesn't that teach us really about the true nature of our heavenly parents as well?
Well, that's the thing. Each one of these rules are very much a rule that I feel our Heavenly Father follows, right? I mean, he has let go of our results. I mean, we know how many percentage, right, of his children have chosen different paths. He has let go of our results. He's letting us figure it out, which is the whole purpose of this life, to let us down. Like, he didn't sit there and tell us exactly what the answer was, and that was somebody else's plan, right? To kind of like, let us, this is what you should do. He's letting us figure it out, because I think there's some kind of process there that will help us become more like him by us figuring it out. And he has very clear and very firm boundaries. He tells us exactly what his commandments are, exactly what we need to do to make it back to him and for us to be the happiest. And there's no budging in his commandments. There is the atonement, which is different. That's how the machine works, right? Is the whole atonement. But unless you use the atonement, he's not going to give you blessings, right? You cannot make it back to him if you have not followed his commandments. But he's, again, provided a way for us, even when we don't follow his commandments, to still make it back. And that's all within the game he has set up, this game of life.
Yeah. And not to make it sound like it's all a game, right? Like we can trivialize it, but yeah, I just think we have so much to learn by following them. And don't you think, I mean, I truly feel, and I think this goes as parents too, that he knows that we are 100% capable of achieving great things. And he's just trying to help us see how capable we are. And that's truly what we're doing as parents as well, trying to help our children see how capable they are and what great things they can do in this world. And when we set them up, when we give this foundation, we set them up to be able to discover that so much more easily.
Yeah. Well, my favorite non-general authority speaker, S. Michael Wilcox, he said this quote, and I'm going to loosely quote him, but he says, you win eternity in life, and you win life in what he calls the dangerous decade, which is, I think he says, the ages of about 12 to 22, right? And he says, and I like how he uses that phrase, that win life. The teen years are so important. That's why I decided to be a teen coach, because this decade that they're starting, or that they're in the middle of right now, is the most important decade of their life. And you, as their parent, you should be the most important adult in their life, their mentor during this time, because you love them the most and you have their best interest in mind.
The end.
That's it. The end, period. Mic drop.
The end. Yep. Joey, it's been awesome. Thank you. I love the storytelling of it, right? Like story always makes it more applicable and more memorable. And anyway, I don't think that I'll look at Obi-Wan or Dumbledore or Haymitch in the same way again. So appreciate it. All right. Before we leave, where can people find you?
Well, I am proud to announce that my app, my new gamified mindset training app for teens, is launching. And I don't know when this episode's coming out, but I think it's going to be launched by the time this episode goes live.
It should be. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm super excited. If you go to sidekicktohero.com, you'll check it out. It's a web-based app, which means that any teen from any browser, right, could access it. They don't need a smartphone for it, but it's a web-based app, and it's gamified, where it plays like a video game, but it teaches them powerful life coaching tools and strategies. And so go there if you want more teaching like this story-based for your teens. That's my specialty. You can also follow me on Instagram. Joey_sidekick to hero is my account for parents, or just at sidekick to hero is my account for teens, where there's just the fun videos.
Awesome. So good. I'm super excited we've been waiting patiently for this app. I know probably for you, you're not so patiently waiting anymore. It's time.
I know. I'm so ready. It's been like literally a year in the making.
Yeah.
And we're just at the final stages of it. One of our weekly calls with the teens who bought the pre-sale for it, they're like in the chat, Joey, app updates, tell us. And then I was like, all right, fine. So I showed them a walkthrough of the app, and they saw some of the glitches that they're still working on, but they're like super excited. I'm excited. It's going to change the way that teens pursue self-development.
Love it so much. Okay. We'll link to all those things in the show notes. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's here today. And we will see you again next week. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.